Most people believe they have touched a man deeply when he starts texting more often, becomes more affectionate, or gives them extra attention. But that is not always the true sign. Attention can increase very quickly, attraction can feel intense, desire can seem powerful. Yet none of those things automatically mean you have reached his heart in the quiet, lasting way that truly changes him. Real emotional impact looks very different. It is gentler, deeper, and much harder to pretend. When a man experiences this kind of connection, he does not simply act more interested for a while. Something inside him changes. He becomes more peaceful around you, more truthful with you, and more open without forcing it. He carries the feeling of being with you even when you are far away. And this is the part many people never notice. This kind of bond is not created by chasing someone, constantly proving your worth, or exhausting yourself to earn love. It grows through the way he feels when he is with you and through what remains in his heart after you leave. So if you have ever wondered whether you simply cross his mind or truly live in his heart, stay with me because these signs are quiet, powerful, and once you recognize them, you will notice them everywhere. By the end, you may discover that the deepest love is almost never the loudest. It is the love that quietly changes the atmosphere inside a person's heart, and the first sign may surprise you more than anything else. The first sign is emotional safety, and this is often where lasting attachment truly begins. A man may first be attracted by beauty, personality, laughter, or chemistry, but he stays emotionally connected when he feels safe enough to be completely himself. That kind of safety is never loud or dramatic. It does not arrive with fireworks or movie-like moments. Instead, it feels peaceful, steady, and clear. It means he does not feel judged whenever he speaks. He does not feel pressure to impress you, perform perfectly, or hide the unfinished parts of himself. Around you, he can finally breathe. He can slow down. He can lower his guard without feeling weak because of it. That matters far more than most people understand. When a man feels emotionally safe, his nervous system no longer treats closeness like a threat. He opens up more naturally. He listens more carefully. He remains present instead of pulling away. He is not trying to force vulnerability. He is simply no longer afraid of it. That difference changes everything. Many men spend years feeling appreciated only for what they achieve, solve, provide, or accomplish. So when they meet someone who feels emotionally safe, it can feel incredibly rare, even deeply healing. Pay attention to the small moments because they reveal everything. His voice becomes softer. His face looks more relaxed. His words come more slowly because he no longer feels the need to protect himself from being misunderstood. Keep watching because what comes next explains why this matters even more. Emotional safety is not built by being perfect. It grows through consistency. That is another piece people overlook every single day. When your words match your actions, when your energy stays steady, when he does not experience emotional ups and downs every time he is around you, his heart slowly begins to trust the relationship. He stops wondering which version of you he will meet today. He stops rereading every text searching for hidden meaning. He stops worrying that one small mistake will suddenly lead to silence, criticism, or emotional distance. That sense of stability lowers anxiety. And when anxiety becomes quieter, deeper emotions finally have room to grow. This does not mean you never feel hurt or disappointed. It does not mean you ignore problems or stay silent. It simply means you express your feelings without turning every difficult moment into emotional chaos. It means disagreements can happen without making the relationship feel like it is falling apart. That changes the entire connection. A man feels safer moving closer when he knows every conflict is not a threat to losing everything. He learns that love with you does not feel dangerous. That trust is not created through one emotional conversation or one beautiful promise. It grows through countless ordinary moments where you remain calm, respectful, honest, and genuine. This is exactly where many relationships lose their depth without anyone realizing it. People chase intensity because it feels exciting, but intensity without stability creates stress instead of trust. If he feels peace with you during both joyful moments and difficult ones, his attachment begins to grow from security instead of fear. That kind of connection becomes stronger, it lasts longer. And what happens next takes that bond even deeper, so keep listening. The second sign is that he feels truly seen by you, instead of simply admired. Many people know how to compliment a man. Many can tell him he looks handsome, sounds intelligent, or appears successful. But being deeply seen is something completely different. It means you recognize who he is beneath his routines, his image, and the role he plays every day. You notice the effort he makes when nobody is watching. You notice the way he thinks before making decisions. You notice how seriously he carries responsibility and how loyal he remains to the people and values that matter to him. That kind of recognition reaches places inside him that often stay invisible. Most men spend much of their lives being judged by results. Did he succeed? Did he solve the problem? Did he provide? Did he stay strong? So when someone notices his character instead of only his achievements, something quietly changes inside him. He feels less misunderstood, less alone, less like he has to earn acceptance every single day. That emotional relief creates a different kind of closeness. It is not built on performance, it is built on understanding. And that foundation becomes much harder to break. Stay with me, because the next detail explains why this kind of connection becomes unforgettable. The secret is not giving endless compliments. It is offering honest observations that are simple and specific. Saying, "I notice you think carefully before you speak," reaches much deeper than ordinary praise. Saying, "You carry your responsibilities with real commitment, even when nobody notices," touches a part of him that empty compliments never can. Those words feel different because they are true. They tell him that someone actually sees the person behind the image. When a man feels genuinely understood, he begins to relax in a completely new way. He no longer feels the need to explain every choice he makes. He stops working so hard to prove who he is. That emotional freedom builds trust, and trust naturally creates closeness. Once that closeness begins to grow, something interesting happens. He starts sharing more of himself without needing encouragement. He brings up thoughts he normally keeps hidden. He talks about what has been on his mind. He shares worries that usually stay locked away. He speaks about dreams, doubts, and questions he has not voiced to many people. These conversations are not forced. They happen naturally because he feels accepted instead of judged. That is when you know the relationship has moved beyond attraction and entered something much deeper. And believe it or not, there is another quiet sign that reveals even more than his words ever could. Not because he suddenly loses the ability to stand on his own, but because your understanding now carries real value for him. That is not a small change. That is emotional investment growing quietly. Feeling truly understood also means you do not rush to fix him every time he opens his heart. Sometimes the deepest connection is not created through advice. It is created through your presence. It is allowing him to finish a thought even when his words come out imperfectly. It is listening without trying to reshape every emotion he shares. It is hearing the feeling behind the sentence instead of only reacting to the sentence itself. When that happens, he feels that his inner world has a safe place with you. And once a man experiences that, he naturally becomes more expressive, more thoughtful, and more emotionally available. Not because anyone forced him to change, but because openness finally feels accepted. That is why being impressive may catch someone's attention, but being understood builds lasting attachment. One fades quickly, the other grows deep roots over time. A man may enjoy admiration from many people, but he feels something completely different with the person who understands him without making him feel exposed or uncomfortable. Watch closely, because this next shift is easy to miss. He starts asking what you think. He remembers things you said weeks ago. He genuinely values your perspective, not because he cannot think for himself, but because your voice has become part of the way he understands life. That is one of the strongest signs that something meaningful is happening beneath the surface. And believe me, what comes next makes this connection even stronger. The third sign is trust that grows through reliability over time. Real trust is rarely built during huge emotional moments. It is built through countless small ones. It grows during ordinary days, in the way you respond when plans suddenly change, when feelings get hurt, when stress appears, or when life becomes inconvenient. If your emotional energy stays respectful even during difficult moments, a man begins to feel secure around you. He knows where he stands. He knows the relationship is not held together by mood swings or temporary peace. That kind of emotional consistency is more powerful than many people realize. People often chase excitement and forget that clarity is deeply attractive too. When a man knows what kind of energy he will experience with you, his mind finally relaxes. He no longer feels the need to search for hidden danger. He stops assuming every silence has a secret meaning. He no longer spends hours trying to decode every message or every pause. That freedom allows him to invest with honesty instead of caution. Trust also grows when affection is not treated like a reward that only appears when everything is going well. If he feels warmth disappears the moment life becomes difficult, he stays emotionally guarded. But when he sees that kindness remains present even during disagreement, he realizes the relationship is genuine, not fragile, not fake, real. Stay with me because this next part explains why calm conflict changes everything. That is exactly why peaceful conflict matters so much. A disagreement handled with maturity teaches him that problems do not automatically mean danger. That lesson quietly transforms the emotional climate of the relationship. Instead of wanting to escape, shut down, or defend himself, he begins to stay in the conversation. He reflects instead of reacting. He repairs instead of pulling away. And when a man starts doing that more often, you are witnessing far more than healthy communication. You are watching emotional trust become stronger from the inside out. The fourth sign is calm, and calm is much more powerful than most people imagine. Not silence, not emotional distance, not cold behavior. Real calm is a grounded presence that helps him feel less overwhelmed by the noise inside his own mind. When a man consistently feels calmer around you, his body and mind slowly connect your presence with relief. That matters because the nervous system remembers every emotional experience. If someone constantly brings drama, pressure, tension, or emotional chaos, the body stays alert and protective. But when someone brings steadiness, honesty, and emotional balance, the body begins to settle, and once it settles, trust, openness, and deeper conversations become possible. Here is something many people never realize, so keep watching because this may completely change how you see relationships. Calm does not mean hiding your emotions or pretending everything is perfect. It means speaking honestly without adding unnecessary intensity to every conversation. You can be direct without becoming hurtful. You can tell the truth without turning every disagreement into a storm. Many men naturally process emotions internally before they talk about them. They often need a little time to understand what they are feeling before they can explain it clearly. So when they feel pushed for immediate emotional answers, it can become overwhelming. A calm presence respects that pace without creating emotional distance. It quietly says, I am here and I do not need to force this. That changes everything. You may notice that he returns to a difficult conversation later without being asked. He opens up after having time to think. He shares feelings he never would have expressed if he had felt emotionally trapped. That is not a lack of interest. That is emotional regulation. And when you respond with patience instead of pressure, he slowly learns that feelings do not always end in conflict. Sometimes they lead to understanding. That lesson becomes one of the strongest foundations of lasting love. And the next part is where many people get completely confused, so do not miss what comes next. Calm also changes conflict in a remarkable way. When difficult moments are handled with steadiness, a man becomes much less likely to move straight into defense mode. He no longer feels he has to win every argument, escape every disagreement, shut down emotionally, or protect himself from every uncomfortable feeling. Instead, he stays present. He listens more carefully. He actually thinks before reacting. He tries to understand what is happening instead of simply surviving the moment. Once that shift begins, honesty becomes much safer. He feels more comfortable saying, I am not sure yet, or I need a little time to think. That freedom creates real depth because it makes space for meaningful conversations instead of rushed emotional reactions. As time passes, he starts connecting your presence with emotional clarity. Being around you helps him organize his thoughts. It helps him feel balanced. It helps him respond with greater care. That kind of emotional association is incredibly powerful. It is not the quick excitement that burns brightly and disappears. It is the steady feeling that stays, slowly becoming part of how he understands love itself. Here is something worth remembering. Many people mistake drama for passion. But drama creates emotional highs and lows, while peace builds lasting trust. One keeps someone anxious, the other makes them want to come back. If a man feels that life becomes calmer and more genuine when he is with you, you are creating far more than attraction. You are creating a place where deep emotional bonding grows naturally. And once someone experiences that kind of peace, it is very difficult to forget. The fifth sign is acceptance without judgment. This does not mean approving of every decision or lowering your standards. It simply means he feels free to be human around you while he is still learning and growing. He can share a fear, a doubt, a mistake, a weak moment, or even a confusing thought without immediately feeling criticized, corrected, or shamed. When a man senses judgment, even in small and subtle ways, his first instinct is usually self-protection. He becomes quieter. He filters his words more carefully. He reveals less of what is really happening inside him. But when he feels accepted as a person, even while imperfect, his natural instinct is to move closer instead of farther away. That is an enormous emotional difference. Many people never realize how many men have learned through life that honesty often leads to criticism or emotional punishment. So when you respond with genuine curiosity instead of quick judgment, you quietly break an old emotional pattern inside him. He begins to believe that vulnerability does not always end with rejection. It can also lead to understanding. And once that belief takes root, the relationship starts reaching a level that very few connections ever achieve. You quietly show him that opening his heart does not always have to end in pain. Very often, this is revealed through the way you listen. You let him finish speaking. You do not interrupt to solve the problem before he has even found the right words. You do not rush to reshape his inner world while he is still trying to explain it. That kind of patience communicates deep respect. It tells him that his feelings are allowed to exist before they are questioned or analyzed. And when a man experiences that, he becomes less defensive and much more thoughtful. He starts looking at himself with greater honesty because he no longer feels attacked. That is where real growth begins. Not through shame, not through fear, through acceptance that is strong enough to hold the truth without damaging closeness. Acceptance also makes emotional risk feel much safer. And emotional risk is where genuine intimacy begins. When someone believes they will not be emotionally rejected simply for being imperfect, they become more willing to speak difficult truths early, instead of hiding them until they become heavy. That is one of the quiet signs that trust is becoming deeper. He begins telling the truth sooner. He shares difficult thoughts before they turn into emotional distance. He stops hiding every struggle behind silence. This does not happen because he suddenly became a different person. It happens because the emotional environment around him has changed. Stay with me because what happens next explains why this matters even more. He slowly realizes that honesty now has a safe place to land, and something equally important begins to happen. Acceptance does not make boundaries weaker. In many cases, it actually makes them stronger. When boundaries are expressed calmly, clearly, and without emotional punishment, a man is much more likely to respect them because he does not feel controlled by them. Instead, he feels informed by them. That difference changes everything. It changes how disagreements feel. It changes how healing happens after conflict. And it changes how secure the relationship becomes over time. If you are still watching, this next layer goes even deeper because acceptance opens the door to something that transforms connection in a lasting way. Shared vulnerability. And no, this does not mean emotionally overwhelming each other or turning every conversation into a dramatic confession. It simply means two people gradually becoming more real with each other in a way that feels safe, balanced, and natural. This is the point where the relationship begins moving beyond comfort into true emotional intimacy. If you overlook this stage, it becomes very easy to mistake surface closeness for genuine depth. So keep watching because this next sign reveals one of the strongest indicators that a man's heart is opening in a meaningful way. Shared vulnerability is much quieter than most people imagine. It is not about revealing every wound all at once. It is not about forced honesty or emotional scenes filled with drama. It is about two people becoming truthful at a pace that feels comfortable for both of them. For many men, vulnerability begins with small moments. He admits he feels pressure. He shares uncertainty. He mentions a fear, a worry, a doubt, or an old emotional scar without turning it into a performance. When those moments are met with understanding instead of discomfort or judgment, trust grows surprisingly fast. Shared vulnerability matters because it creates balance. If only one person is emotionally open, the relationship can begin to feel uneven. But when both people slowly take emotional risks together, closeness becomes something they build side by side instead of something carried by only one person. That is why your own calm honesty matters so much. When you speak from the heart without creating chaos, you quietly give him permission to do the same. You show him that openness does not always lead to losing control. Sometimes it leads to relief. Sometimes it leads to the deepest kind of connection. And what comes next is where this bond becomes impossible to fake. You will often notice this change when your conversations naturally become deeper over time. He no longer talks only about what happened during his day. He begins sharing how those experiences affected him inside. He slowly stops hiding behind facts and practical details all the time. Instead, emotions begin entering the conversation. That is a major turning point. It means he is no longer simply spending time with you. He is beginning to share his inner world with you. That is when the relationship starts feeling more genuine, more deeply rooted, and much harder to replace with surface attraction alone. Shared vulnerability also changes the way conflict feels. Blame slowly gives way to honesty. Silence begins giving way to communication. Disagreements still happen, of course, but they no longer feel like battles. Instead, they feel like two people trying to understand each other while protecting the relationship at the same time. That creates a completely different emotional experience. But remember this because it is important. Vulnerability only works when it is invited, never forced. If emotional openness is pushed before trust has had time to grow, it usually creates resistance instead of closeness. Stay with me because the final piece of this changes everything. If he feels pressured to reveal emotions before he is ready, his natural response will often be to protect himself even more. But when openness grows through patience, consistency, and genuine care, it begins to feel natural. It feels safe. It even becomes something he welcomes instead of fears. Over time, this kind of shared vulnerability creates an intimacy strong enough to survive real life, not only the exciting days, but also the stressful ones. Not only the easy moments, but also the uncertain days when both people are tired, imperfect, and still trying their best. A man who experiences this kind of mutual openness does not simply feel attracted anymore. He becomes emotionally invested. He feels understood without feeling stripped of his dignity. That balance is incredibly powerful. The relationship feels deep without becoming emotionally heavy, honest without becoming chaotic, and here is the part many people never fully understand. Vulnerability is not about telling someone absolutely everything. It is about revealing enough, together and over time, to build trust that becomes strong enough to hold even greater honesty later. That is why slow, sincere openness often creates a far stronger bond than fast emotional intensity ever could. If he begins letting you see the feelings behind his facts, you are witnessing one of the clearest signs that his heart is opening in a real and lasting way. The seventh sign is respect, because respect is one of the strongest emotional foundations any man can experience in love. Without it, attraction slowly begins to fade, and emotional openness starts closing again. With it, trust expands, and the relationship grows stronger with time. Respect becomes most visible in the way you speak to him, especially during difficult moments. Your tone matters, sometimes even more than the exact words you choose. A calm voice during disagreement communicates something powerful. It tells him that even when emotions are high, his dignity is still safe with you. That feeling changes how he responds. Instead of preparing for a fight, he becomes more willing to listen, reflect, and stay present. Respect does not mean avoiding hard conversations or pretending everything is fine. It means handling those conversations without attacking the person standing in front of you. And when a man consistently feels respected, even while being challenged, he begins trusting the relationship on a much deeper level. That kind of respect becomes something he carries with him long after the conversation ends, and it quietly shapes the way he loves you in return.